Think about the last time someone you cared about went quiet on you. Not an argument, not a fight, just a silence. No texts, no warmth, a kind of emotional disappearance that you could not explain and could not stop thinking about. And the disturbing part, you did not get angry. You got anxious. You started retracing every conversation, every word, every moment of trying to figure out what you did wrong. You checked your phone more. You softened your tone. You started making yourself smaller, more available, more eager to fix something that was never fully explained to you. That was not an accident. That was architecture, emotional architecture, built with precision and designed to shift the balance of power in a relationship. Without a single word being spoken, what you experienced has a name. It is called the withdrawal effect. And once you understand how it works, you will never look at silence the same way again. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you goes much deeper than the silent treatment. This is about the psychology of control, the neuroscience of attachment, and the hidden power dynamics that most people spend their entire lives trapped inside, without ever realizing it. The mechanism behind the silence. Human beings are wired for connection. This is not a metaphor, it is biology. The brain's attachment system, governed largely by oxytocin and dopamine, is designed to detect social warmth and respond to its removal as if it were a genuine threat. When someone who has been a consistent source of emotional reward suddenly withdraws that reward, the brain does not process this neutrally. It registers it the same way it registers pain. This is the foundation of the withdrawal effect. It is not simply about someone choosing not to speak. It is about deliberately engineering a drop in emotional temperature and then allowing the other person's brain to do the rest of the work. What's really happening beneath the surface is a psychological phenomenon called intermittent reinforcement. When affection, attention, and warmth are given inconsistently present one moment, absent the next, the bond that forms is not weaker. It is significantly stronger, more obsessive, more consuming. The brain begins to chase the reward because the reward has become unpredictable. And unpredictability, in the language of behavioral psychology, is the most addictive schedule of reinforcement that exists. Casino designers understand this. Slot machines do not pay out every time. They pay out just often enough to keep you pulling the lever. Strategic silence in a relationship operates on the exact same principle. The anatomy of strategic silence. Most men never notice the difference between someone being genuinely unavailable and someone deploying unavailability as a tool. The silence looks the same on the surface. The effect, however, is entirely different, and it is designed to be. Strategic silence is not passive. It is highly active. It involves timing, calibration, and emotional awareness. The withdrawal is typically introduced after a period of elevated connection, after warmth, after intimacy, after moments when emotional investment has been deepened. The timing is not coincidental. Pulling back at the peak of connection ensures the contrast is maximized. The brain interprets this contrast as loss, not inconvenience, actual loss. And in response to that loss, the person on the receiving end begins a predictable behavioral sequence. They reach out. They over-explain. They become more accommodating. They begin to unconsciously associate their own comfort with the approval of the person who withdrew. Power has shifted quietly, completely, and often permanently. What makes this dynamic so difficult to detect is that it never announces itself. There are no demands, no ultimatums, no confrontations. The person using silence as leverage simply becomes slightly less present and allows the other person's need for resolution to do all the work. 3 real-world scenarios. Consider a man in the early stages of dating a woman he is genuinely interested in. For the first 3 weeks, the communication is consistent, warm, and reciprocal. Then, without explanation, the energy shifts. Her responses become slower. The enthusiasm that was present before is now measured. He tells himself she is busy, but internally, something else begins to happen. He finds himself crafting messages more carefully. He starts showing up more, giving more, offering more, trying to recreate the feeling that was there before. He does not realize he is being led. He believes he is choosing. Now consider a marriage, several years in. The couple has established a dynamic of mutual engagement until one partner, sensing a shift in leverage, begins to emotionally withdraw in response to unmet needs. Not by voicing those needs, by retreating. The other partner, confused by the change, begins to seek resolution. They become more attentive, more present, more affectionate. The partner who withdrew never had to ask for anything. The silence communicated everything, and the relationship reorganized itself around that silence. A third scenario, a modern situationship, the kind that defines a significant portion of dating in the United States today. To people emotionally invested, with no defined structure between them. One person goes quiet for 5 days without explanation. The other person spends those 5 days in a low-grade state of anxiety at checking their phone, second-guessing their last interaction, feeling a pull towards someone who is physically absent. When contact is restored, the relief is immediate and intense. That relief binds them. The person who went silent did not lose anything during those 5 days. The person who waited lost 5 days of psychological sovereignty. Reclaiming your power. Here is what changes everything: awareness. The moment you can name what is happening, the mechanism loses most of its power. Not all of it. The emotional response will still be there, because biology does not switch off. But the behavioral spiral that follows, the overreaching, the shrinking, the unconscious compliance that can be interrupted. The first step is learning to distinguish between genuine distance and strategic distance. Genuine distance comes with context, with time, with life. Strategic distance follows a pattern. It tends to arrive right after an emotional high, and it tends to resolve as soon as the other person has demonstrated enough compliance to satisfy the underlying objective. The second step is understanding your own attachment response. When silence triggers anxiety in you, that anxiety is not evidence that you have done something wrong. It is evidence that your nervous system is responding to perceived loss exactly the way it was designed to. You are not weak for feeling it, but you are responsible for what you do with it. The third and most important step is developing what psychologists call earned security, a grounded sense of self-worth that does not require external validation to remain intact. When your sense of stability lives inside you rather than inside the approval of another person, silence stops being a weapon. It becomes, at most, information. A person who does not chase silence has fundamentally altered the power dynamic, not through aggression, not through retaliation, simply by declining to participate in the architecture that was designed to control them. The most sophisticated form of control is the kind that never looks like control. It looks like distance. It looks like someone simply being unavailable. It looks, from the outside, like nothing at all. But now you know what it looks like from the inside. You know the architecture. You know the mechanism. And knowing the mechanism is the beginning of being free from it. The people who are most susceptible to the withdrawal effect are not the weak or the naive. They are, almost universally, the ones who care the most. Think about what that means for a moment. The capacity to be moved, to be affected, to actually feel the weight of another person's absence, that is not a flaw. It is the thing that makes connection possible. The goal is not to become someone who cannot be reached. The goal is to become someone who chooses, consciously and deliberately, who gets to reach them. If this opens something in you to recognition, a memory, a question, then sit with that. The most important psychological work always begins in the silence you choose for yourself.